Hello and welcome to Youth in Sports, where every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. we feature special guests from near and far. The program is sponsored by ATI Physical Therapy, providing certified athletic trainers to more than 30 area high schools and colleges. First State Orthopedics, the team taking care of Delaware with a commitment to excellence. And Wilmington University, where Youth in Sports is produced by the College of Technology's students and faculty. And now, from the studio at President Jack Barcelona's Wilmington University, your hosts for Youth in Sports, AOSSM Mr. Sports Medicine 2012, Dr. Michael Axe, UD and St. Elizabeth's own Dr. Joseph Strait, and co-founder of Youth in Sports, Mr. Walter Ladien.
Hey, welcome to Youth in Sports. We have a special show tonight, one that will be seen, I hope, a lot of different times, because we're going to interview the creator of Youth in Sports, Walter Ladien, and he's going to take us down memory lane when Youth in Sports was just a dream to the reality that it became more than 22 years ago. And with me tonight is Dr. Joe Strait, our co-host, and the guest of honor is Mr. Walter Ladien. Walter, I know it's a different spot for you being in the chair, but it's not the electric chair, it's the memory chair. It's that take us down the time from which you had this idea for Youth in Sports, and now we've had how many thousand people have been on Youth in Sports?
Probably 9,000. Probably of those 9,000, 6,000 the first time and the last time they've ever been on TV, you know, young kids.
You remember that the thank yous we've gotten from so many athletes, they've been on our show when they were in high school, and they said amazing. That when they get to the pro, or when they get to the colleges and to the next level, they said, you know what, I had already learned how to relax. You know, the cameras didn't bother me like they used to because of the experience that they had, Dr. Strait, on Youth in Sports. I mean, that's where you began your media career.
Definitely was. The only time I've ever been on TV.
Well, the funny part about it is it was live. When you were on, it was live. Mike and I did the live shows. I kind of liked the live shows because, you know,
I didn't, because we couldn't bleep you, Walter.
Yeah, right. You couldn't bleep me.
I couldn't.
And right now they have to get $1 million insurance because of me. They're afraid to get sued. What I'll say and what I won't say, but
we don't get sued for what you won't say.
In '85, I left the horse business. I had a great career, won 1,000 races, made $3-4 million in purses, and my kids were getting older. My main client died. So I did not want to go back to New York. I wanted to stay in the local area, and Brandywine and Liberty Bell both closed, so it was a dilemma for me. And so I decided to stay in the area, and my wife said that I've got to get a regular job. And I said, what do you suggest? And she said, well, you could sell ice to an Eskimo, be a realtor. I said, a realtor. So I went to school, got in the real estate business, and the first...
So you're in the real estate business for how long before you get the idea of Youth in Sports?
6 months.
6 months. Now, I'm going to take you down memory lane because I was probably one of those guests in the first 6 months. And my experience...
Well, you were a guest because when my son got hurt, he hurt his arm, and I had heard about Dr. Axe being a great doctor for athletes. So I tried to get him into Dr. Axe right away. And like a typical kid, he doesn't tell me till,
halfway
a day before. So I can't get him into Dr. Axe. I take him to this other doctor who was, fairly noted orthopedic doctor. And I didn't like what he said, so the next day I take him into Dr. Axe.
So that means that from the day you called to the day you got seen was still just 2 days.
Exactly, exactly, which was great. And Dr. Axe, when he examined Craig, I knew what he was saying was correct. And Craig played. He played baseball that next season, which was great. And I always talk to Mike about this, that the fact that if I followed the other guy's advice, which I thought was silly, then he probably would have been atrophied in that one shoulder by not doing anything and not getting it treated and, long toss and the whole bit. But anyway, I really liked Mike, and when we were into the show, I told my co-host, who was Susan Chikala, that he would be a great addition to the show, but she was like reluctant because she was having a tough time. It wasn't.
Yeah, but the purpose
her
of the
niche.
show when you
know,
first bring up the concept, take us
well, the
through.
concept with
how
the
to
show,
start.
when I was
I mean,
in
that's
real
the big
estate,
thing.
I thought, they talk about farming, sending all this junk mail out to say that you're in real estate. I thought this was absurd. When I got junk mail, I tore it up and threw it away. So I said, there's a better way to get publicity, and I decided TV, because I had done a lot of TV when I was in the horse business. I was on every local show. I was on Ed Sullivan, dating myself, because he was one of our clients. And I thought, TV's the only place to be. So I thought, well, let's start a TV show. We'll do real estate.
So you wanted
we'll
a
do
really big
sports.
shoe?
Pardon?
You wanted a really big shoe like Ed
Really
Sullivan?
big shoe.
Just to sell real estate on there, how did it become a youth in sports? Where was that?
Well, it
part of
started
How
as
did-
youth in sports. The theme of the show was sports, because I knew that, taking myself into consideration, everybody loved their kids and wanted to see their kids, and I could do both. Two things I love. I didn't love real estate, but I love my kids, and I love kids' sports, so that's how I incorporated it.
All right, so you decided you're going to do the youth in sports because people are going to watch.
Exactly.
The people that are going to watch are the people buying houses. So you
Well,
put the
they would
two-
know that I was a realtor.
Right.
And being that I would get some sort of fame in that I was taking care of their kids, and when you say nice things about somebody's kids, they like you. So all I wanted was an in, because I knew I was good, but I didn't have the personality, that people automatically
You weren't
liked
the
me.
reverend.
Yeah.
So who did you sit down with to do
Well,
this?
I
How
didn't
did-
sit down with anybody. I figured
just
it
did
out
it yourself?
myself. Yeah, I figured the only way to be is on TV. I found out how to get on TV, which was on Comcast cable. And once I started the show, after about 3 months, I realized I got to have a co-host that people like to get me in the door. So I found Susan. She was in my office, and she didn't want to do it, but I talked her into it, and we became real estate partners and did really well. But the show, when she was on the show, and then we got Mike, and then we had the good thing. And then I kind of really ignored the real estate part because the show was so good about the kids.
But tell about what happened was with the real estate part of each of the breaks where you see the Wilmington
do
University.
houses, right.
Well, yeah, we do Wilmington University and all the other things from ATI, who are our sponsors. At that time, it was Prudential. It was
Prudential Preferred, which was Craig Millard.
Yeah.
He, in turn,
He was
a
very
cool
nice
guy,
to us.
great guy. Susan and I went to him.
He was the ATI equivalent of today. He was the major sponsor of the show.
Right, and believe me when I say that Craig Millard was a class act, and I thought he was a great guy. The Philadelphia Magazine did a scandalous piece on him. He was so upset that he sold the company to the Fox people and left the area. And I was so irritated at that.
Well, where did you guys tape? I mean, was it here at Wilmington?
No, it was originally on 13. But here's the funny story about
It was
how we
Comcast
started.
Central. It was where
Right.
all the cable cable has just become big, particularly in the Wilmington area. It had been big other places. So Walter had the insight to get just a wonderful time. Tuesdays, 7:30 to 8:30, and at that time, as we have today, there was absolutely no competitors on
Right.
national television.
Right.
There wasn't a big syndicated show that we had to compete with. So I thought it was ingenious. And then on the breaks, he
Perfect
would
for
then
local.
show
I do the
4
real
houses.
estate,
He would
right.
show 4 houses. And he would go, today, and he'd locate the area up in North Wilmington in this so-and-so development. We have this 4-bedroom, 2-bath, $200,000 house with a backyard. It has a deck and so
Yeah, we
forth and so
showcased
on.
them, right.
Yeah, and then
And other
sort of
agents,
like what goes
other
on-
agents became friendly to us because we would publicize their house.
Exactly.
Plus, their clients could see us doing that, and we got nothing but good vibes. And I remember my manager at the time was Mel Stout. He since has died, and he was the president of the realtors thing. And he told me, he said, "Well, this never go." And I said, "You're wrong, Mel." He also told me, unbelievable. Now here's the president of the American
Realtor Association?
Yeah, Realtor Association. He told me when buyer broker came in, he said, "This will never last, Walter." I said, "Mel, you're absolutely crazy. This is the thing of the future. It's definitely." And of course, I was right and he was wrong. And
Well, we wouldn't be telling the story otherwise.
well, no, I think that my insights have always been good, and I'll get into that if you let me. But The way the
Stay
show
focused
started,
now.
the way the show started with Susan is the funny thing, because she wanted to have everything, black and white. So we get this guy. She wants to get this guy that's a producer on Comcast and in New York, and he was a cool guy. And we have a meeting with him. So he goes over that we should do this and this and this and this, and Susan's shaking her head, and I'm looking at this guy. So at the end of the conversation, when he's all done, I said, and how much will this cost? He said, well, we can get by with $1,100 an episode. So I looked at him and I looked at Susan and I said, thank you so much. Goodbye. The show was costing us $210 a week, which I was paying for, and before we got the sponsors. And when he said like $1,100, I kind of laughed. But that's what advertising costs.
I was going to say, other than Prudential, who else was an advertiser?
Mike brought in First State Orthopedics. So between First State Orthopedics and Prudential Preferred Craig Millard, there was only like $20 left, and I paid that. And the show was set. And we were live, and we did it every week, rain or shine, summer, winter. We never missed a week.
52 weeks a year.
52 weeks a year.
We probably, for the first 10 years, never had a rerun.
Yeah, never had a rerun.
Because I don't think that we knew whether they taped the shows or not, other than us.
My wife taped the shows.
We used to have the big reels, Joey, that were so big that I had a whole garage full of the first 10 years. And when we cleaned out the garage, we found the original reels from years
That's amazing.
back.
Now it's all computerized, DVDs.
Right. Well, now I want to get a lot of those shows put on DVDs. I'm going to talk to the guys here about doing that. But my wife taped the first 10, 12 years of the show, every episode.
And he would come home and she would critique, what she liked, what she didn't like. It was fun. And he would come back and he'd say, "Okay, Joe, this is."
But when
we'd make the changes, Look into the camera when you're talking to this.
Everybody said to me, everybody, you're crazy. You can't do this. You're absolutely out of your mind. And I said, you're wrong. I knew I was wrong. My experience was that I had done every TV show in the Philadelphia area and some in New York for horse racing. The tracks found out that I was glib. In fact, I taught a class at the University of Pennsylvania for 3 weeks on horse racing. So I knew that, I could carry it. It was a matter of getting guests. And that was, I think, the toughest part. Mike knows when he came on and Susan was she didn't really take part in the production part.
But she did a great job getting the houses ready and having them ready.
She did a good job with the houses.
But the insight to see that as it goes forward from 85 on, that's excellent. TV and how it brought kids in and it
the other thing was when Paul Schweitzer came on, he was a big addition because he had treated a lot of these great athletes and he got them as guests and Mike got them as guests. But one of the things Paul said, we should go downstate and we should go here. But for Comcast, you'd have to go 3 different ways. And I decided, let's put us on the internet.
And let's go to a break and we'll come back right after this, taking a trip down memory lane of youth and sports.
I will keep dancing on point, even if it hurts.
My arm is killing me. I don't know if I can pitch another ball. But I'll just play through the pain anyway.
I have to do the big stunts. To look better than the other cheerleaders, our tosses are bigger.
My elbow really aches, but I've got to keep practicing.
Don't tell them it hurts. It'll take you out of the game if you do. I have to push harder if I'm going to get a scholarship. I'm feeling dizzy, but I don't want to tell anyone.
Everyone's counting on me. I can't rest now.
Nearly 50% of all sports injuries sustained by middle and high school students are from overuse. Don't play through the pain. See your healthcare provider and follow their instructions for rest and recovery. Take the pledge. Become an advocate for sports safety. Visit StopSportsInjuries.org.
Go team!
Welcome back to Youth in Sports. We're taking a walk down memory lane here with the creator of Youth in Sports, Walter Ladien. And as we're going to break, we talked about some of the early shows that Walt and Mike and Susan put together. Hey, Walter, tell us about how did these early shows come together and how did they do and what did you learn from them?
Well, that's a funny story. I don't know how many times it would be Tuesday, because the shows were live. We'd done on Tuesday. Tuesday, after being in the office, I would go to the fields and ask people to be on the show. That's how we get the guests. And it was really funny because a lot of times I would do that. And that's the only way we got the guests, because we didn't have anybody helping us. You know, it was like we were on our own. And, you know, we got a whole bunch of good guests. But one of the things about the show that I thought was great is that everybody learned something every week, you know? And like Mike would always say, that these were their first, maybe and last, you know, outlet to be on TV and to talk about their accomplishments. I would get letters from kids that it was the greatest moment of their life. And I would be a little amused by that, but it was great. It was great that you made a mark on some kid's life that he never, and what we tried to do, Mike was all about that the News Journal wasn't covering the girls. And I agreed with that. And we tried to spirit and have mainly a lot of girls on the show, a lot of girls teams, because they weren't getting the same publicity that the men were, which was unfair. And as you know now, girls sports have exploded onto the national scene. We have so many great women athletes and girl athletes that are getting scholarships. And before this, that was not heard about, you know? And so this was a major thing that I thought we accomplished. We got together with the News Journal with Kevin Tresolini and with... a
young Kevin Tresolini.
Kevin Tresolini. And we tried to, you know, not lambast him, but tried to work with him. And we would have...
But he was saying the same thing, though. He's saying he would like to have more coverage, but his editor wasn't allowing it to happen as well.
And what I tried to explain to him was, you're the only paper in town. Whatever you put out, they're going to read. So give them a fair shot. And
yeah, we didn't have the internet, Joe. I mean, the News Journal was the source of sports for Newcastle County.
That's how everybody got their sports news. Do you remember one, like, I say famous or touching athlete that you had on that was female?
Well,
can you remember?
Mike worked on the Olympic ice dancing champion,
Yevgeny Platov. Yevgeny
Platov. He was a handsome young Russian, spoke English well, and a great ice dancer. Obviously, won the Olympics.
No. He won the Olympic gold twice and the World Championship twice.
There you go. So he comes on, and he was fabulous.
Remember.
And one of the things he said, we cracked up. We said, well, I asked him, I said, well, Yevgeny, how many partners did you have? He said, 2. I said, well, what happened to the first one? He said, she get too fat. I can't throw her. So he dumped her, and he gets this new one that thought she was Marilyn Monroe.
Sasha.
And she was in Florida, and when she found out that he was going to be on a show, she was going to fly up to be on the show with him, and he said, "No, we're okay." You know, but she was a publicity hound.
Well, that's an interesting story because Yevgeny had won the World Championship twice and the Olympic gold once, and he had just won the World Championship with her, and he said he couldn't get deep enough into the death spiral because he had this collection of tissue in the top right above his kneecap, which wouldn't allow him to bend as much. And he was told that if he couldn't get into that bend almost to one a lot, that they weren't going to win. So after the talk about pressure, so after the World Championship in which he won, he says, "You have to operate on me." So I said, "Why?" And he just wanted. So he talked me into it. And we went in and shaved it off. And the final crux of the story was that they won the Olympic gold. Now that was fine. So they had a party at his house, and he lived right outside of Newark. And his parents came over
from Russia.
And they were staying with him, and they stayed with him from his surgery time through the Olympics and so forth, and I had to sign the visa that they had to be there because they were taking care of their son. Meanwhile, he goes out and wins the Olympic gold. So we did fudge a little bit in that one, but they had me over to dinner, And I remember calling a taxi to go home.
Borscht.
Vodka. And I said, this is no way I'm going to get home. I was the designated driver, was the taxi.
Well, and on that vein, we had some other pro athletes on. We had some pro ice skaters on, who I still see.
Rocky.
Rocky and
not Carla, but anyway.
Carla, yeah. And Carla Levan.
Obransky, Urbanski, yeah, right.
Great gals, and they were the last ones that were the real
We
Olympians.
had the Struthers brothers, brother and sister.
Before the pros came on. And they got shafted, because right when it was their time, here come all the pros, they're making $1 million a year. She's waitressing, he's driving a truck. It's ironic that Rocky is now teaching one of my grandkids to skate, and his daughter is an outstanding skater.
Now tell me this, did you ever have your son on?
We did. He was an outstanding football and baseball player for Swayze Adam, and we had him on. In fact, I got the kids to do commercials, and I'm going to find them, but they were great commercials. Like they talk about supporting your school, don't drink, all that stuff. They were PSAs. But I'll tell you a funny story about.
Remember the tie I was wearing at the time was Just Say No?
Yeah, Just Say No.
Just Say No.
I got Coca-Cola as a sponsor from one of the girls in Philadelphia that was the Coca-Cola person. So I said to her, and we had Coca-Cola, their own commercials, which was great. I mean, this was like big time. We had her for about 3 months. So I called her up one day and I said, hey, I got an idea. And she said, what's that, Walter? I said, why don't we have local athletes and coaches, with the Coke? She said, oh, that's a great idea. Let me call New York. And she calls me back and she said that they were pulling their commercials. They were just done. And I said, I know why. And she said, what's that? I said, well, when they can get Tiger Woods and the guy can meet with them and become buddies, they don't want to have a successful local commercial. And so we got shafted. I made a mistake. I should have never brought that up because it was too good to be true. But just like big business, that's the way it works. We can schmooze with, whoever.
We've had on politicians.
Oh, yeah.
We've had referendums. We've had many social causes. The Red Clay School District has been on a bunch of times. George Meany was on when Colonial was looking for a referendum in order to pay for it. The first thing that people... You want to talk about Bruce?
No, I'm going to talk about the insurance commissioner. She was great.
Donna Lee Williams.
Yeah, Donna Lee Williams was great. And in fact, my wife had talked to Donna Lee Williams about a problem, and she had called back, not knowing who my wife was. And I thought anytime, and when she told me she was stepping down, I was really upset because I thought she explained it really well. Because a lot of kids, how do I get insurance? And all kinds of different insurance.
And then we've had on the mayors when they were running.
Right.
And certainly the governor and John Carty when he was the lieutenant governor in charge of the governor's council and fitness.
And then when he was running
when he ran as well.
Right.
And certainly that was a fun time and of course the politician coach, best guest for joking.
Bruce Reynolds, the greatest. Mike told me, before I got to know Bruce really well, Mike told me, he says, come on and go with us. We're going to go to a dinner. And Bruce is the moderator. He said, you're going to like it. Well, he was so funny and so good. I told Bruce that he was, to me, that was an underachiever because he should be governor. And he laughed. But I believe it. He was the whole package. A great guy, a great coach, a great person, knowledgeable about everything.
Well, I've only been active for about a year with you guys as a co-host, and I'll tell you, there's been a lot of even things, the Lyman House that you've brought on multiple times, and
they call us. Joe,
it's excellent.
And what you're going to find is the longer you're here, when I'm dead and you're here, is that people are going to call you and say, I got this cause, but you're going to have to figure out if the cause is just and you want to support it. Mm-hmm. Like there's been some shows where I've said to Mike and Mike says to me, I don't like this person. I don't think they're good people. I don't think they're representative of what we're about. And we haven't had them on. I remember Chip Hannig, the great swimming coach for Swayze Adam.
Who's still alive, by the way.
Pardon?
He's still the swimming coach, and he's still alive.
He's a great guy, a great guy. Never said a bad word about anybody. I had some guy, I was going to have some guy on, and Chip calls me up, and he says, Walter, this is a bad guy. You should not have him on. And I told Mike and I told Susan, I said, we're not going to have this guy on. Because Chip never said, you know, and as I found out, they were right. The guy
So
was
the
a
show's
bad
been
guy.
a great community interaction piece
It has.
as well, which is...
And Mike is talking about, you know, kids talking to us. And, you know, we're looking at him and go, hey, Walter, do you remember me? And I'm looking up, you know. I mean, the kids are 9 foot tall now. But one of the great things that I've had happen to me, and Mike, I'm sure has had happen to him, is parents coming up. I had this one, when the show was only on like a year, I had this one older woman come up to me, and I say older because, you know, and she said to me, I like your show. And I said, why? And she said, because I like the way the kids express themselves, and it's positive. She said, we need more positive stuff. And that's what Mike and I decided, that we need to have a positive venue. And Mike gets mad at me when I get a little down on politics today. So Mike tries to keep me harnessed so that I don't explode.
Pretty good for a harness racer, right?
So I don't explode.
Well, no, and one of the things that we do really believe that it has been the commitment of this show is that there are so many great kids, and the only ones we read about, other than in the sports section, the people that don't do good things.
And,
there are just
that's
so
the big
many,
news.
and we've proven that over and over and over again that there's absolutely a plethora of great kids out there that just don't get their dues. And the next segment we're going to talk about a couple of other things, and one of our focuses have been that why did we choose certain guests? So we had some themes. So our first theme was that we were going to promote young people that were special. The second theme was that we were going to do at least 60-40 girls to guys because they weren't getting their dues. We were then going to combine it with political moments that were important to the youth action movement, whether it be Parks and Recreation or whatever. We even had on David Sokola when we talked about teenage driving and the change in those laws. If it was going to affect an athlete getting to and from school, we thought that that was a good focus. But one of the things that we'll discuss in the next grouping is that we chose professions. We would bring on people who did athletic professions. We're going to go to a break and talk about that right after this.
What does opportunity mean to you? At Wilmington University, it means providing a personalized educational experience where students learn anywhere at any time. Wilmington University provides a variety of ways to complete your degree. Choose the flexibility of online learning, or attend classes during the day, in the evening, or on weekends at locations throughout the region. It's your degree. Choose how you earn it. Personalized education, affordable tuition. That's the difference at Wilmington University. What does opportunity mean to you? At Wilmington University, it means finding an innovative degree program that fits your goals and prepares you for a successful career. It means finding a school that fits your life. We know the importance of providing individual attention, affordable tuition, and unparalleled flexibility in service. Because at Wilmington University, it's not about meeting your expectations, it's about exceeding them. Personalized education, affordable tuition, that's the difference at Wilmington University.
Welcome back to Youth in Sports and our trip down memory lane with Walter Ladien talking about the historical perspective of youth in sports. Walter, we ended when we were talking about our guests, but one of the points that you wanted to make was that we don't just focus on athletes, we focus on special kids.
That's
so
correct.
we've had the band, we've had the boosters,
We've had the actors and actors.
We've had your favorite group, the Thespian Society.
Right,
We've had on
right.
those people that talk about the supporting functions of what makes a school special. And athletics is a big part of it, don't get us wrong. That's why it is youth in sports, but it's not the only thing that we promoted. What do you remember about the other organizations that we've been trying, and we search for those groups?
Well, one of the things that everybody knows, I'm a television watcher. You, Mike, not so much, and you have young kids, not so much. I'm a television watcher, so I kind of know what's on the TV, and I'm appalled now what's on TV. Our show would be better than 40% of the shows that are on TV, without a doubt, okay? And one of the things we always tried to do was try to get different slants on things. Like TV affects the young people so much, and the internet has now almost taken the place of TV, and it's certainly taken the place of newspapers. So what happens is, Mike, how many kids want to get involved in CSI kind of things?
Overwhelmingly. That's the gig. They want to go
10 years ago, nobody knew about that.
forensics.
Pardon?
Forensics.
Yeah, forensics.
Biology teachers can't get enough, give the kids enough. They're elective, they want to talk about.
Well, one of the things I loved with Mike was he'd bring these medical people on, like for Joe, for you, and we talk about how they got into their niche and what they wanted to do, and Mike would say to them, well, are you taking this, or are you taking that? And they'd look at you sometimes, well, no, I'm not. Well, if you don't, you're in trouble. But a lot of athletes wanted to get into, they didn't want to leave sports. So they wanted to be either physical, and this is where I would get confused, physical trainers.
Athletic trainers, physical
trainers, right. All that stuff, all different, all requiring different degrees of learning. So that was another thing where I know a lot of parents would pick up that information, because I certainly did. But the other thing, like we had the FBI on every year for like 8, 9 years. The guy that was the FBI guy that came on was the head of recruiting for the East Coast. And I didn't even know how you got to be an FBI agent. I didn't know that you had to be on your own for 2 years after college before you could become, you could ask to be an FBI agent.
And we got to caution the people that when they went to college, what they did in college mattered if they wanted to be in the FBI.
That leads into our active professions that we've been bringing on even now is your cops, your firefighters, and a lot of the athletes that want to stay in
the dogs on. We had the young woman that had the bomb dog, and we asked her, we said, well, what's your bomb? And I train dogs overseas. So I said to her, I said, what does your dog do when she said he sits down. I said, well, that's got to be a scary moment when he sits down. She said, yeah. But the fact that a young lady had the dog that was the bomb thing. And what the guy in charge of the dog unit said that nowadays you could teach those dogs to look for anything, if you train them right. And
well, now we had on the Dogs Association where for epileptics,
right,
for diabetes, and so forth. But let's talk about another group of people that we had on that you always had fun with, was the Army and Navy recruiters.
Oh, yeah.
Air Force recruiters.
Right.
So talk about, because Walter would always tell the story. Walter is a Vietnam vet and survived some pretty difficult situations over in Vietnam, and that was one of the things with your dog things. But you were cautious about the young man, but the Marines, when we had the Marines on and the guys come in there, Walter would always make mention of the uniforms and how great they looked in their uniforms.
Oh, they did, yeah. But, these are the best and the brightest. I mean, these guys. And one of the things that just confounds me is we allow these wonderful young people to get sent into harm's way for no apparent gain. Vietnam, I just watched a special about McNamara, who was the Secretary of Defense under Kennedy and Johnson. And he was the president, the first non-Ford that was president of the Ford Motor Company, and he was president of the World Bank after he left politics, and he was very, very intelligent. And he told them right from the start that it was a bad move, and Kennedy started it, then Johnson, and the fact is that if they knew anything about history, that's why I'm such a big history buff, that Ho Chi Minh would have been the best solution for Vietnam. That the Viet Minh helped Allied flyers during World War II. They opposed the Japanese. And when we allowed the French to get Indochina back after the Second World War. It was a major blunder, major blunder.
But you were able to share that with these folks, and that was always. So what do you think at that time, as we think through, we talked about recently CSI has been the group that the kids want to be. When we first started, it's my recollection that most of them were policemen, firemen, and they were going to go into the military. And at that time, they were health professions.
Yeah,
health professions. Right. But the thing about the military was a good option then because we weren't fighting anywhere.
Right.
It was a peacetime. Vietnam was over, and we were in between, so it was a great way to get in, serve your 2 or 3 years, then get out and go under the GI Bill to...
Yeah, and also some of the things, if you get in the Air Force, you work with planes. I mean, the Air Force, was a great way to get into aircraft mechanics. Everybody can take from the service what they want to take from it. Mm-hmm. But you get to travel, get to meet new people. I mean, when I got drafted, didn't want to get drafted. But I decided, am I going to waste 2 years of my life, or am I going to try to make it a positive experience, which I did. And it was a positive experience.
So let's go. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My earliest memories of youth and sports, I was probably in my, I probably was about 12 to 15,
Don't date
somewhere
us,
that.
Joe. Don't date us.
But I remember you guys bringing on, and I always go back to, it was youth and sports, and it was high school kids and grade school kids, and you guys brought on cross-country runners that won state championships and teams. And
we tried to get them.
There was multiple times I watched the show when I was a young person and said, oh man, one day I want to be on there. And mine came not in a sports thing, but through medicine. But I always wondered how that happened and how you guys got these teams. I mean, it's hard to get a hold of.
Well, that was one of those things. I had just been getting involved with the DIAA. So I was attending more sports in an official capacity, and the first two schools that I took care of were Wilmington High School and Howard. And not surprisingly, because of the kids that went to school there wasn't a lot of people that wanted to take care of them, and there was a lot of need. So we had started the all sports program at First Aid, which gave us access to having these, and they were so excited to be on television at the time because there were no other social medias. So we had no problems, and as Walter spoke to earlier, now that we're at Wilmington University, we work the academic schedule, and it's the spring and fall semester, so we only do 22 to 24 shows over the course of the year. Well, there we were doing 52. So we were hustling for guests all the time. So how it would work, Joe, was that every December, the first 3 weeks in December were championship weeks. So we would have on, the first week we would have on soccer, volleyball, or one of the girls' sports, okay? Then we would have on
football,
football would be the last one.
Right.
And then we'd have the Beast of the East. So the Beast of the East always
had
it.
And that's
carried exception.
And that's carried on. I mean, this year we've
every year for 20 years
right.
we've had the Beast of the East.
And then Mike had a tournament in December that was great for girls, which I
Diamond State Classic.
Diamond State Classic, great tournament. They brought teams in from all over the country that were top teams. I mean, nowhere would a Delaware athlete, unless he went to a private school that traveled, would get to see these kind of people. Like for the Beast of the East, for the Diamond State Classic, and for some of the traveling football teams like Swayze Adams, St. Mark's, those kind of. Otherwise, these kids would only be able to judge themselves by Delaware standards. Well, we found out, hey, look, we got some great wrestlers. We had great girls basketball. We had great soccer teams, and this was the reason why, because of these great tournaments, which we continued to sponsor because we believed in them. The other thing was we had two great organizations. Well, actually three. We had First State Orthopedics, which I believed in because I used them. It wouldn't be like,
we were only 5
because Mike's on, we're going to have First
We only were 5 when we started, now we're 17.
Right. So we had First State Orthopedics, then we had Paul's organization, and he had 3 different ones. He kept moving around, but each one was good because Paul was good. And those kind of organizations brought a lot of great athletes because all the great athletes geared towards them in our area. So that was great. Just like Yevgeny Platov going to Mike out of Russia. I mean, because he heard about what he could do. And
he was practicing down here, and he wanted a local person that could take care of him.
And that's another thing. The ice skaters have a great venue at the University of Delaware. Ron Lundigan, what a great coach. coached a lot of world champions. So Delaware, you know, and I'm, by all means, let me throw this in. I'm rooting for Joe Flacco, although I like both teams, but I love Joe Flacco. And Mike can tell you, he brought me to a game. I saw Joe Flacco throw one pass, and I said to Mike, he's a first-round draft choice. And then when we had a bet, I won that one. And then I said to Mike after he got drafted, I said, he's going to start. Had another little bet, won that one, and here he is in the Super Bowl. And his demeanor.
Do you have a bet that he's going to be a Super Bowl winner? Is he going to be wearing a ring?
His demeanor and his deportment brings pride to the University of Delaware.
Definitely does.
And to Delaware. This kid is a winner.
Yep, and so is Youth in Sports. We're going to go to a break and come back with our fourth segment. We're going to talk about the organizations that we've supported over the time as well. So stay watching.
I know they never make me play with these guys, but why do they make me train like them?
Training hard is important, and for professional athletes, it's their job. But kids aren't professionals and shouldn't train at that level. Keep kids safe on the playing field and out of the operating room. Become an advocate for sports safety. Visit StopSportsInjuries.org.
Well, welcome back to Youth in Sports and our trip down memory lane with the creator of Youth in Sports, Walter Ladien. So, Walter, this is our last segment. We have a couple of things that Youth in Sports done well. We're happy with the direction we're going here at Wilmington University. It's lovely being around the students, watching them produce and direct, and all the other folks. And thanks again to President Jack Barcelona for making this lovely facility available. But let's talk about some of the things that didn't go out. We had this great newspaper idea, so let's talk about the newspaper.
Well, I thought it just rode hand in hand that if you have the TV show, have a newspaper. And so we had a newspaper, came out once a month, and Mike supported it, and Joe Maselli, my accountant, he helped me with the newspaper. And that newspaper lasted for a year, cost me 10 grand. And my wife had a fit, but
Walter, who ended up writing in it?
Pardon?
Who ended up writing the paper, the magazine?
Joe Maselli, myself.
So you guys were actually writing the articles in the paper.
I thought it was a great paper. I should have brought some copies, and I kept it.
We had students that wrote for us.
Yeah,
they would write the editors in various high schools.
What did it touch on? Was it on Youth in Sports, or was it
absolutely? It's on Youth in Sports.
Nutrition, different things.
Everything.
The topics.
Everything that we talked about.
The original Axe Facts were part of that.
Yeah, Axe Facts. Well, and the Axe Facts were great too. That was another great idea. Mike had it for Axe Facts. You know, and Mike wanted me to do a real estate thing. One of the things that we've done, I can be proud of, is Mike asked me one time, he says, Walter, in your life, do you think you've made a difference? And I said, yes. Good question, yes. One of the things that I talked about was when the subprime came out, I came out against it big time and informed every week on the show, told people not to buy. If they want to sell, good deal. Don't buy. Don't take one of these mortgages where it's interest only. Don't take a subprime mortgage. I told him, I said, I can take a homeless person on the street and get him to buy a $200,000 house. Something's wrong. And I said, don't everybody remember 1983 when the market tanked? Don't you think that's going to do that again? And everybody was just gung-ho. And Wall Street was the joke, where they were packaging this crap and selling it to investors and then betting against it. And that's how they made a lot of money.
But he did a wonderful job of, we made sure that people understood that about mortgages and the like, and how that whole thing moved forward. You also, in the course of time, so we had the paper, okay, and we had causes like the Boys and Girls Club.
Great cause, another great organization. And the one thing that disappointed me a little bit about the Boys and Girls Club is, like, they had a commercial with Denzel Washington. They had a commercial with Jennifer Lopez. I would play those commercials. Those two icons of American entertainment, I mean, when kids see those people, I mean, I want to do what they're doing. And I thought that those were great commercials. And when I see these terrible insurance commercials and car commercials and idiot commercials, I think that those commercials should run forever. And instead of, like, people like Bill Gates, which is great that he gives all this money, but he's, you know, doing stuff overseas, do it here. Those commercials would help some of these bebop kids that have no vision and all they think about is today and getting the best pair of sneakers.
Let's talk about a vision you did have, though. You wanted to be on the internet. You said, Michael, we need to have a presence on the internet. So we worked our way through. We found a place on Host Monster. We decided that we would have our shows available. But what really turned the whole tide was our troops being sent to Iraq.
Right. Mike said, well, this is a great venue for a brother or a father to see their son or daughter on TV, you know, on the internet. And not only that, but what we found was Comcast, if we wanted to go to Middletown, it was another fee. And then if we wanted to go downstate, it was another fee. So Paul said, well, let's do that. I said, Paul, no, let's not do that. Let's go on the internet. And then everybody came on board.
Everyone.
And it, you know, it didn't cost us a whole lot. We went on the internet, and now anybody that hits youth, anybody that hits sports, we're there.
And you can watch all the shows from years past. Most of the things have been live.
Well, what's his name? Our professor downstairs,
Scott Shaw.
Scott Shaw, done a great job with that, where now you can go on the internet and watch a show from, 6 months ago.
Or from 3 years ago. And we also found the biggest hits came from Sally alumni that were other parts of the country that would watch the show. They would find out from their alumni news. But it was really one of our, and I'm sorry I don't remember her name right now, the young lady that was one of the folks that were working behind the cameras, and she was decided that she was going to do the Proud American moment because her loved one was over there. He was a sergeant. He was a sergeant in the Army.
And I saw her at the grocery store.
Oh, great.
Yeah, great gal, and she was in here with a course. And this is another great thing. Wilmington University has been a wonderful place to come. First of all, it's a great school. Second of all, they have these young people that are learning about a craft that's today. I mean, one of the things that we try to tell these kids is, if you're going to pick a profession, pick one that's going to be around 10 years from now.
Pick one that you can work your way through school.
Right.
Or you can gain different...
Well, one of the things we learned, and I wanted to bring this up and I let it slip my mind, one of the things I thought we did a great job with, we had fathers and coaches on that explained the process of putting their kids in college with any kind of help. For example, a scholarship, especially a sports scholarship. And we had some great guests on that, just laid it out, right? And he has since died, great guy. And he explained it really well because he was really into it, got his son a full ride at Syracuse.
We're going to have the readers on here in a couple weeks to talk about Troy, their star athlete. The mom played at Elizabethtown College in basketball. Dad played at BC in football, played at Delaware, finished his career at Delaware, and then played for the Steelers. And now their son, Troy, is one of the top recruits here in Delaware, and he'll be looking to play linebacker, most probably linebacker, in the Division I school.
It's great.
They'll be on a future show in 2 weeks.
What about you, Joe? You went to St. Elizabeth. Where'd you go to school?
University of Delaware.
Okay, University of Delaware.
State.
Did you get any aid from the University of Delaware?
I did. I got
then where'd you go to medical school?
And then I went to Jefferson.
There you go. Jefferson has ads on TV all the time.
Exactly.
Great school. And you decided you wanted to be a doctor right in school. What prompted you to be a doctor?
I was at 16 and I had multiple surgeries with Dr. Axe and
There you
Dr.
go.
Newcomb, and it pushed me right into it.
One of the things I always liked about Dr. Axe is every time I go to his office, there's a young guy there or two.
Exactly.
And, you know, man and woman. And those kind of people can see what's going on and decide. That's why I really liked the schools, what kind of schools, Mike? The
Votech.
Votech school. Because those kind of people.
And their superintendent's going to be on in a show here
I think
in
they're
early
great
March.
schools. I never was a big fan of the Votech schools. It always was like, oh, those guys or
Exactly.
gals.
Until you learned about them.
Until I learned about
So you learn
on
that
this show.
the trades they're taught and what
Exactly.
the
You could get an
experience that's out there
inkling
for
of what
doing
you
things.
want to do, or better still, what you don't want to do. You know, it's when you find out you always wanted to do something, and then all of a sudden you start doing it, you go, whoa, wait a minute, I don't like this.
A classic-
Save yourself a ton of money.
Well, it's a classic example. Lakota May, the forward for the University of Delaware's outstanding basketball team, was at Votech at Del Castle, was part of that state championship team, and was nursing. And she decided that that was not her calling. So she's doing something different. I think she was on our show maybe a couple months ago when we had on the UD athletes, the girls.
Another
and she's
thing
going to
we
do
did,
human
another
resources.
thing we did, Joe, is we found out from Mike especially how much it costs the average person to become a doctor or a dentist
or a nurse or a
yeah.
lawyer or yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's outrageous, you know, and they got to decide. That's why the Votech, I think, is good because, hey, look, if you're going to make this commitment or your parents or your grandparents are going to make this commitment, be sure that that's what you want to do.
And it's kind of early in life as well.
Absolutely.
Coming out of a high school program where you're able to decide this is what I want and what I don't want. When you're coming out of college, you go to medical school and you realize this wasn't what I thought it was.
The one thing that bothers me about the show, even though it's a great show with a great cast and the information is available, that it seems like today's public is a now kind of thing. You know, tell me in 10 minutes what you're going to tell me, otherwise I'm on to something else, I'm going to switch the channel. And I don't know how many people have watched our show because they're flipping the channel. And I don't know how many times Comcast, because like I say, I'm a TV watcher, Comcast has on their channel to be announced because they don't keep it current,
updated,
which really irritates me. But luckily, we have a following of the show that people know it's on Tuesday at 7:30 to 8:30. And like Mike says, we kind of a lot of times lose the 8 o'clock group to, you know, CSI or one of those other shows. But at least if we catch them at 7:30, we got something. And then they can go on the internet.
I think it's amazing of how many kids that you've had on at a young age that did sports or were, you know, a participant in some kind of organization in the area that you brought on that have come back and still stay in Delaware. As we know, most people that live in Delaware stay in Delaware, and they don't.
I think it's a great place to
come back
live.
on.
It's a great place to raise kids.
My oldest son tells me that it's a well-kept secret how great Delaware is, and he's okay with that.
Let's keep it as a secret, right? But what about when we see kids that were on the show when they were young, and now they're coaches, they're athletic directors, they're teachers,
or their kids are on our show.
Or their kids are on the show.
That's exactly
I mean,
it.
that's a great feeling.
Where
and
should
they
we go?
speak well.
We're now in the last couple minutes. Where should we go from here? Where would you like to see youth in sports? How should we
think that
expand?
the internet's the big thing, and I think if we keep our internet presence, that we can't go wrong. And I think as long as we keep giving informative shows that try to be entertaining, you know, information to me is entertaining, but let's hope it appeals to the people that we want it to appeal to. And hopefully, like a lot of people say, if we reach one person or two people, we've done our job and we're satisfied.
And I know that since I've been on, I think that the way, and I hope you're sharing it, that I'd like to get back to getting to the youth that are in the Delaware area. And
well, we all do. We all do. And like I said, one of the things that Mike and I talk about is we're polar opposites when it comes to a lot of different things. But we're friends, and we have fun. Even this show, I mean, I'm having a good time, and I hope you guys are too, but it's fun, and you learn something. It's fun.
Well, you learn that you can do something if you have the resources to do it, that you have to do your homework, that it has to have a theme, it has to have an appeal. And we thank our sponsor, ATI, who's taken up for us when Prudential Preferred Properties, they share it with with First Aid Orthopedics. We also have every Tuesday in the sports section on page 3, we have a box that says what we're going to have on that time frame, what show is going to be on there, and we thank Linda from ATI for her help.
Oh, ATI and First Aid Orthopedics, 2 great companies. I mean, 2 great companies. Wilmington University, great school. The president of Wilmington University, he had the foresight to know, hey, look, I know what the crap is on TV. This is a good show.
And we'll leave that. Thanks for watching the history of youth in sports, and thank you, President Jack Barcelona, for making your university available to us.
What does opportunity mean to you? At Wilmington University, it means finding your relevance in the job market. That's why we offer career-oriented degree programs that meet employment needs in emerging fields. Dedicated professors bring their real-world experience into the classroom so you'll graduate with the tools you need to succeed on the job. It's your degree. Make it relevant to your career. Personalized education, affordable tuition, that's the difference at Wilmington University.
This show was sponsored by ATI, the company taking physical therapy to a higher level throughout the country. First State Orthopedics, where Youth in Sports hosts Drs. Straight and Axe are members of the team taking care of Delaware with a commitment to excellence. And President Jack Barcelona and his Wilmington University College of Technology, where each semester this student-run program is produced, directed, edited, and distributed under the guidance of the TV production faculty. Each guest receives a copy of the show, and all shows are available on the web at youthinsports.com.